Can you get a star in Super Mario 64 using only one button? That's right, of all the buttons, you get to pick one, and you get unlimited presses of that one button, but absolutely nothing else. So it's kind of the opposite of what we're used to, because in the A button challenge, we mark A as off limits and you get access to everything else. But in this new challenge, which I'm calling the one button challenge, we mark one button as all you get and everything else is off limits, even the control stick. So overall, you have a lot less to work with. And interestingly, no one's ever gotten a star using just one button. So if we do it here, it'll be a world first. And that's the challenge. So now, let's dive right in. Now, if we just started from the game's start, we wouldn't get very far in this challenge. And that's because after the title screen, we end up on this screen with Mario's head. And the only button that lets you proceed at this point is the start button. After we press that, we end up on the file select screen, where conveniently the start button can then be used to select file A. But then after the intro cutscene, we end up stuck on the first text box since pressing start doesn't scroll text. So yeah, this is the farthest you can get from the game's start using only one button, which is why we're not going to be starting from the game's start. Instead, to give ourselves a fighting chance, we'll be analyzing this on a single star basis, meaning we'll be starting from right when you enter a course. In other words, we enter a course, use one button, but unlimited presses of that button, and end by collecting a star. If we do that, it'll count as collecting a star in the one button challenge. And like I said, no one's ever done this before, so if we can get even a single star like this, I'll consider it a success. But one big question we have to answer is which button should we use? Well, here's the Nintendo 64 controller. Breaking it down, it's made up of one control stick and 14 buttons. Now the control stick itself isn't a button, so that doesn't count for this challenge. In fact, it's actually fairly easy to collect some stars using only the control stick. That's been done before, so let's factor out the control stick. As for the remaining 14 buttons, we can rearrange them like this. So we have 5 buttons that don't do anything, which is L and the 4 D-pad buttons. We have 5 buttons that affect the camera, which is R and the 4 C buttons. We have 1 button that controls pausing, which is the start button. And we have 3 buttons that actually control Mario, which is A, B, and Z. So now, let's go through each of the button groups to see if they can be useful for collecting a star. So first, let's analyze L and the D-pad buttons. Obviously, since they don't do anything, they're not going to help us get a star. Next, we have R and the C buttons. For these, all they do is move the camera, so they're not going to move Mario towards a star. Well, technically, we can press C up to go into first person mode, which does change Mario's action, but it still doesn't let us move around. Third, we have the start button. For this one, it just lets us pause and unpause the game, which also won't help us get a star. So already, this challenge isn't looking very hopeful, but luckily, the last 3 buttons are much more useful because they actually control Mario. Specifically, A lets Mario jump, B lets Mario punch, and Z lets Mario crouch. But remember, we only get access to 1 button, so let's test each of them individually. Specifically, let's start out by analyzing Bob on Battlefield and see if we can get any of the stars here. First, let's try the A button. It only lets us jump, which I'll admit is much more useful than pausing or turning the camera, but jumping by itself just moves Mario up and down, not horizontally, so it's impossible to actually go anywhere. And it's a similar thing for the Z button. It only lets us crouch, not move around. So it's hard to even imagine a scenario where that lets us get a star. But what about the B button? Since B punches forwards, this one actually lets us move around. So it's pretty clear this is going to be our main tool in the challenge, just punching our way across the course. But there are so many downsides. We can't turn, we can only move super slowly, we can't even control our spacing. Like, doing follow-up punches or changing the timing of the B presses doesn't affect our spacing at all. We still end up going through the exact same set of points on the ground. So yeah, we're at a huge disadvantage compared to regular gameplay. But nevertheless, let's push on to see what happens. You can see here that Mario ends up punching his way right into the cannon and then gets stuck. and there's literally nothing we can do at this point. We can't turn, we can't jump over it, all we can do is punch, and that doesn't move Mario anywhere. But interestingly, there actually is something we can do. You see, the course has different layouts depending on which mission you choose and whether you've unlocked the cannons. And in the one button challenge, because we're at such a disadvantage already, I'm gonna allow us to use any course version we want, even if unlocking that course version involves using the control stick and multiple buttons. So it's like, before we actually start the challenge, we can break the rules. You know, unlock everything we need and then re-enter the course to do the challenge proper. You still can't use hacks though, so you do have to start the course in a state that can be legitimately achieved. So in Bob-omb Battlefield, we could start the course with the cannon already opened. Now what happens when we press B is different. See, we don't punch up against the cannon and get stuck, we actually fall into the cannon and then get stuck. Because we can't launch from the cannon with B, only with A. So once again, we've reached a dead end. But there's actually one more course version we can try, when the cannon lid is there. This time when we punch our way up to it, we can actually go onto the cannon lid and get past it. So we've made it past our first obstacle in the one button challenge. But we haven't gotten the star yet, which is what we're actually trying to do. Now if we continue punching our way forwards, we move up against this wall, where we end up stuck just punching it over and over. And I checked Mario's exact coordinates to see if there's any drift to the sides over time, but there's not. After a bit, Mario ends up getting into a groove where he repeats the exact same positions. A perfect cycle, so there's no progress to be made. So Bob-omb Battlefield is a dead end, so let's move on to the next course, Whomp's Fortress. Like before, pressing only A and pressing only Z don't move Mario anywhere, so they won't help. And so going forward, I'm just gonna stop mentioning A and Z each time unless there's something new to say about them. So just assume they don't work. But I will be showing B each time because that's our main tool. Unfortunately though, pressing B in Whomp's Fortress just moves Mario up to a sign where he then starts reading it. Now we can scroll through the text with B, but once the text is done, pressing B just reads the sign again. So we're stuck in an infinite loop of reading the sign. And once again, there's literally nothing we can do about it. Like, just due to the angle that Mario happens to start at and the fact that there's a sign there, it means that there's no way to avoid that happening. So a big factor in this challenge is just hoping Mario starts with a good angle, because if it's bad, you get stuck, and no amount of skill or perseverance can get around it. So let's move on to Jolly Roger Bay. Here we have a pretty good angle, it lets us move towards the rest of the level. Now we can punch our way into the water and then use B to continue moving. Like normally you're supposed to use A to swim, but B does a water grab. That moves Mario forwards, so it's effectively just as good as swimming, just a bit slower. And remember when I said during punches we had no control over our spacing? Well, here in the water, we actually do have control over our spacing if we time the B presses differently. So technically, we have a lot more options for our movement, even though they're all just swimming forward on the same line, just at different points on that line. But anyway, after we swim forward enough, we hit this wall and get stuck in the corner, so that's a dead end. Now there's also the course version where the ship is floating on the water's surface. If we use that course version, then it's a little different, because this time we end up getting stuck on the ship, so it's still a dead end. Then next, let's look at Cool Cool Mountain. Here we start with a pretty interesting angle. It goes off the edge, letting us fall to a lower part of the course. But now the angle isn't very good because I just end up falling off the level. If we do it slightly differently though, I can bonk on an invisible wall and fall down to the wall kicks will work area. That's at least a little progress, but we still end up with a bad angle that makes us fall off. Now I tried even different movement, which moves us onto this slope and changes Mario's angle. Then if we go onto the slope again, we slide all the way across the map. Look at that slide. I'm not pressing anything, he's just doing that on his own. We go onto that part for a second, then just barely manage to reach this slope, which makes us fall down here. Then we can punch our way along the wall until we reach this slope, which causes Mario to slide backwards towards the edge. That lets us get a better angle, because now we're facing slightly to the right. So we can punch into the wall again, this time moving us to the right very slowly. So after 30 minutes of that, we make it over here, where the spin drift attacks us. That's actually good though, because now we have a better angle. Then we can continue moving along the wall until we get to this edge, at which point we slide off and die. Now hypothetically, it may be possible to get over here with a better angle. If we slide off now, we actually manage to cross the gap by butt bouncing on the island and using the wind to reach the ski lift. But even so, we still just end up falling off the edge. So yeah, Cool Mountain seems to be another dead end. Next, we have Big Boo's Haunt. When we punch our way forward here, we end up against this wall and get stuck. So it's pretty simple to rule out this course. Then we have Hazy Maze Cave. Now if we punch our way forwards, we can bounce on the Scuttlebug, continue forwards, but then we get stuck reading this sign. Alternatively, we can avoid killing the Scuttlebug and instead have him knock into Mario to redirect our angle. Now we're getting somewhere. Unfortunately though, the Scuttlebug won't leave us alone, he just keeps attacking us. And we can't move out of his home range because his home updates to where he is on every knockback. So his home range is effectively following us. So yeah, he just hunts us down until we die. I also tried going to the right, but the same thing happened. He just kept attacking me and I died. Ultimately though, even if we found a way past the Scuttlebug, it wouldn't matter, because the only way out of this room is through doors, and punching our way into a door doesn't open it. So no matter what, we're trapped in this room where there are no stars to get. Next, we have Lethal Lava Land, and you can probably see where this is going. We punch our way forwards, fall into this gap, and then die from the lava. So yeah, pretty simple to analyze, but it's not the outcome we wanted. Then we have Shifting Sands Land. Now this one's actually going to require a lot of analysis, so let's actually put this one aside for now and come back to it later. Next, we have Dire Docks. We actually start off in water this time, which is pretty unique, so we should test all three buttons. For the B button, we can swim forward and reach the slope on the perimeter. From there, we can continue pressing B to slowly move along the wall, but then after a few minutes, we get stuck in this corner. If we use the A button instead, we can also swim forward, but this time when we reach the slope, we just get stuck there, because now all we can do is jump in place. And then for the Z button, Z doesn't do anything in water, so that won't work either. So let's move on to Snowman's Land. Now this course I actually had high hopes for, because I thought maybe we could do the glitch to duplicate money bags and get the 100 coin star out of them. Unfortunately though, just due to the angle that we start at, we end up reading this sign and getting stuck. And like I keep saying, there's literally nothing we can do about it. No amount of energy or willpower can avoid this sign. Then next we have Wet Dry World, which actually has 3 different starting states, because depending on whether you enter the painting low, medium, or high, the initial water level in the course will be different. So let's look at all 3 water levels. First, let's do the low water level. We can punch forward, drop off of the wooden board, and get onto the ground. From there, we can have the Skeeter knock into Mario, redirecting us to any angle we want. With this angle though, I just end up getting stuck in the corner, which will basically happen no matter which direction we go because there are no ramps that connect the bottom floor to anything else. So we're essentially just stuck on the bottom floor. The only exception would be if we manage to get over to the teleporter. That relocates us onto the cannon platform, which is very close to the Shocking Arrow Lift star. But as expected, we don't have a good angle, so we just end up punching our way off of the platform and falling back down to the ground. Then second, we have the medium water level. This time, we can swim forward, have the Skeeter knock into us to change our angle, and then go forward to climb up this ramp. Then we get burnt by the fire spitter, which actually causes Mario to bonk and turn around. Then from there, we get burnt again and fall back into the water. So that didn't lead to anything. And finally, we have the high water level. This time, all we can do is swim forward and get stuck on the wall. That's because this time we can't use the Skeeter to redirect us since he's essentially broken on this water level. He just goes back and forth infinitely. You see, the Skeeter sets its home right when it spawns in, so its home ends up deep under the water. Then the Skeeter rises up to the water surface, causing him to leave his home range. And when he's outside of his home range, he has to aim back towards his home on every lunge. That results in him going too far past his home one way, then too far the other way, and so on. And it repeats down to the exact position, so there's no hope of getting knockback from him. Then next, we have Tall Mountain. Now if we just punch our way forwards, we end up falling off the edge. But notice how there are Goombas nearby. So interestingly, we can wait for one to come close, then he notices Mario and bumps into us. That means we can use the Goombas to turn to whatever angle we want. But the question is there any angle that would even help? Hypothetically, if we got over here, we could fall off and go into the wind, but then we're just trapped in the wind with no way to move. We could try going this way, but then we fall into the gap. Now I tested if using the crazy box could help us cross the gap, but I couldn't make it work. But even if we did get past it, then we just encounter the next gap, so it wouldn't work anyway. Now speedrunners grab the crazy box and use it to bounce onto the lonely mushroom and get the star there, but notice how that technique uses the control stick to help stay on the level before the big bounce. In the one button challenge though, we can't use the control stick. So if we grab the crazy box while facing the mushroom, we can't hold ourselves back and we just end up going over the edge. And I also tried bouncing off of the wall to give me slightly more room, but that doesn't work either. Next we have Tiny Huge Island, which actually has two different entrances. You can enter the Tiny Island or the Huge Island. So let's start with the Tiny Island. We can kill this Goomba, punch our way into the water, but then we get stuck in a corner. Now since we start so close to that Goomba, this is a rare case where using the A button is kinda useful. We can bounce on the Goomba, get the coin, and then we're stuck again. Okay, now I remember why I stopped showing the A button. Now in the Huge Island though, we have a lot more room to explore. We can use the Goombas to redirect our angle, punch our way through the hole in the wall, enter the water, get redirected by a Spiny, get onto this land, use a Fly Guy to redirect our angle, continue going forward, but then we fall off at this big gap in the ground. Hypothetically though, it may be possible to somehow bounce on the Goomba, get knocked back from the Fly Guy, twirl off of the Fly Guy, which moves Mario through the air while falling very slowly. Now it looks like we're gonna die, but there's actually vertical wind over here that saves us. So we can ride the vertical wind over, which ultimately places us down on this ground. But even if we did all that legitimately, there'd be nothing to do from here. We can't enter the warp pipe, and going this way would just get stuck at this wall since we can't jump. Now we could also try going onto the beach, but it's surrounded by walls and steep floors, so there's nowhere to go from there either. And even if we found a way to get onto the Koopa shell, it still wouldn't help because the shell can't climb up steep floors, at least not without the control stick. Then next we have Tick-Tock Clock. Another simple one to analyze because punching forwards just falls off the course and we die. It doesn't even matter what setting the stage is on, like slow, fast, still, or random, because we don't even interact with any of the clock parts. And note that we don't get close enough to the Bob-ombs homes to affect them at all, so we can't use them. Next, we're in Rainbow Ride, and we start out with the perfect angle. Punching goes right onto the bridge and then onto the carpet. But can we survive the carpet ride? Well, we can get past this gray block that wasn't even in the way, but then we get to this blue block and there's nothing I can do, so I fall off. I even tried using punch recoil to back off of the carpet and then diving forwards in the hopes that I could do a rollout, but I just don't land back on the carpet, so I couldn't get it to work. Well, that was all the main courses, so next let's look at the secret courses. In Tower of the Wing Cap, we start off flying, which means the B button doesn't do anything. We just continue flying forward until we move so far away that we get ejected from the level. Same thing with the A button, it also doesn't do anything. But since we're flying, this is a rare case where pressing Z is actually useful. It lets us ground pound and fall straight down. Here I've even landed on the wing cap switch. I didn't press it though because it was already pressed. If the switch were up though, maybe we could press it using only Z. I mean, it's not a star, but it would be something at least. Unfortunately though, we can't even do that because if you enter the course with the switch not yet pressed, you get a dialogue box. And Z can't scroll through dialogue, so we're just stuck. Then we have Cavern of the Metal Cap. We can punch our way forward, and we're temporarily immune from the Snuffet's bullets because we start off with the metal cap. Once the metal cap runs out though, we just get decimated by the Snuffet. And there's no way to get past him because we're just not fast enough. So he just keeps hitting me, and eventually I die from it. Then next is Vanish Cap under the moat. We have a decent angle this time, so punching forward goes onto the ramp and then we slide down. Okay, we missed that red coin. Still going though. Okay, we missed everything, but can it still somehow work out? Unfortunately no, because once we're at the bottom, punching forward just makes us fall off the edge. Then we have the Princess's Secret Slide. Here we're facing straight forward, and you couldn't have asked for a better angle. So we can punch our way forwards towards the slide. Now remember, we have no control over our spacing, so there's just one way to go onto the slide. In other words, we can't change anything about our setup, so we only have one shot at this, and whatever happens, happens. Okay, we're doing pretty good so far, although this is the part with the walls on the sides. Once the walls are gone though, we instantly fall off, so that didn't work. Next, we have the secret aquarium, where we start off swimming again, so let's test all the buttons. The B button moves us forward, which does let us get some coins, but without the ability to turn, we ultimately end up getting stuck against this wall until we drown. Same thing with the A button, we can collect some coins, but then we get stuck and drown. And while swimming, the Z button doesn't do anything, so that's useless. There is one cool thing though. Watch what happens if we press literally nothing. Mario falls straight down, very slowly, and at one point he triggers a 1-up to spawn and instantly collects it. See, we went from 4 to 5 lives. So if your goal was to collect a 1-up in the no input challenge, then we've done it. But that's not our goal, we want to get a star in the 1 button challenge, so let's move on. Next, we have Wing Mario over the rainbow. I mean, this level's hard to do even when you have access to all the inputs. So we don't really stand a chance, we just punch forward and then fall off the cloud. Then we have Bowser in the Dark World. We start off with just the right angle so we can get pretty far. We punch our way down the steps, across the bridge, but then we get to the fire. We don't move fast enough to avoid it, so we do have to get burnt by it. It's not the worst thing though, because it does let us move pretty fast. Then we can get past these platforms, continue punching our way forward, but then we get to this part with a U-turn. And without the ability to turn around, there's nothing we can do. We get burnt and just run off the edge. Then next, we have Bowser in the Fire Sea, where we also start off with a good angle. We can punch our way forward onto the elevator, then the elevator starts moving, and gee, I wonder what's gonna happen. Well, in case you haven't figured it out, we get pushed off by this gray block, and then we just die in the lava. And then we have Bowser in the sky. We can punch our way forward, but as you can see, we end up falling into this gap and dying. Well, that was all the secret courses, so all that's left are the stars in the castle itself. Now, the castle isn't exactly a course, so it's not even clear where we should start from. But I'll make the rule that we can start from any transition into the castle, including from exiting courses. So now, let's analyze the castle stars. First, we have the star from the Toad in the Hazy Maze Cave room. So our best bet is to enter the castle by dying in Hazy Maze Cave. That starts us in the right room and facing vaguely towards the Toad, but if we punch forwards, we just fall back into the level. We can also try exiting Hazy Maze Cave by collecting a star, which is like the only other thing to test, but pressing B on this menu doesn't do anything, so we're just stuck. Second, we have the star from the Toad outside of Tall Tall Mountain. Now if we do a death exit from Tall Tall Mountain, we end up stuck punching against the wall. A star exit would give us a much better angle, but like I said, we just get stuck on the menu. Third, there's the star from the Toad in the Tick-Tock Clock room. Here our best bet is to do a death exit from Tick-Tock Clock, which faces vaguely towards the Toad, but similar to before, we end up getting stuck punching against the clock. And then the final stars in the castle are from catching Mips the rabbit. We can try doing a death exit from Lethal Lava Land, but that faces the wrong way. Now a star exit would face right towards Mips, but then we can't get past the menu. So yeah, the castle stars aren't looking very possible. So let's review. We went through every course in the game except Shifting Sands Land, and they all failed. So if there's any hope for this challenge, it would have to be done in Shifting Sands Land. It's our only shot left at collecting a star with one button. So let's analyze it. We start off here on this white platform. Punching forwards then moves us towards the crazy box. We grab it and bounce through the air. I can't change anything about the trajectory of the bounces, but once I land, I can continue punching to move. Interestingly, then the fly guy attacks me. If we push through it though, I can continue forward and go to the perimeter of the course, but then we just die in the quicksand. Alternatively, we can have the fly guy bump into us just right to let us face a better direction. From there, we can make our way over to the Goombas, who can then let us face whatever direction we want. But what direction are we trying to face? Where do we go to get the stars? Well, let me explain what stars are even in this course. There's a star from Klepto the bird, a star on the top of the outside of the pyramid, at the top of the inside of the pyramid, for beating the IROC boss, for collecting the 8 red coins, for collecting the 5 secrets inside the pyramid, and a star for collecting 100 coins. Those are the 7 stars in Shifting Sands Land. Land. Now these 3 stars are all located inside the pyramid, so they'll be easy to analyze. We'll just assume for now that we can get into the pyramid and see if we can do anything from there. But there are actually 2 different ways to enter the pyramid. First, there's the lower entrance, which starts you on the bottom of the inside. Punching forward here just ends up getting stuck against this railing, so that won't help. And second, there's the upper entrance, which starts you at the top of the inside in this elevator. Similar results here, we just end up stuck punching against the wall. So right off the bat, we can eliminate the 3 stars inside the pyramid, because any way you enter the pyramid just immediately gets stuck. Next, let's think about the red coin star. Since our main tool is just punching along the ground, it would be pretty difficult to get these 4 red coins up in the air. Like, consider this red coin near the oasis. If we can prove this red coin is impossible to get, then the whole star is impossible to get. So let's analyze it. It's not like we can fly to it, because flying requires the A button. We can't shoot from the cannon, because that also requires the A button. So really, our only hope is trying to use this fly guy to twirl over to it. But even under the best theoretical conditions, which is a knockback into a twirl, it still doesn't go far enough to reach that red coin. So, I'm declaring the red coin star impossible. That means we're left with just 3 stars in the whole game. The Klepto Star, the Pyramid Star, and the 100 Coin Star. The whole challenge comes down to these 3. So let's do a deep dive into the 100 Coin Star. We need to collect 100 coins, but luckily it doesn't have to be 100 unique coins, because there is an infinite coin glitch that we may be able to use, and it has to do with the cork box. You see, if you pick up a cork box, put it down, and then wait 30 seconds, the box actually flickers and then disappears. And then assuming you go far away enough, the box also then respawns in its original location. But now watch what happens if we throw the box from just the right position. The box moves along the ground and it ends up slowing down due to friction. So you can see that the box is heading right towards the wooden fence on the edge of the map, and if it touches that, it would break. But it doesn't quite touch it yet because it's going so slowly. In fact, the box will never come to a complete stop. It just moves slower and slower until it's moving a few hundredths of a unit per frame. And it's still gonna disappear after 30 seconds. Now it actually moves into the wall on the exact frame when it disappears, so it both explodes with coins and respawns. That means we can get the coins from the broken box and then repeat this process with the newly respawned box. So that's how you can get infinite coins out of a cork box. But what about the box in Shifting Sands Land? Can we do the same thing here, but while only pressing B? Well, firstly, since we can't use the control stick, that means we can't walk around with the box. In other words, we can't bring it to the perfect spot to throw it from. Instead, all we can do is punch our way up to the box, grab it, and then throw it. So the question is there a way to throw it from right here where it'll crash into something after exactly 30 seconds? Well, I used some brute forcing tools to test thousands of throw trajectories, and I found that if we pick up the box and throw it exactly like this, then the box moves along the ground, slides down the hill, and after 30 seconds, it moves onto the pillar and breaks. That's because the bottom floor of the pillar is very steep, and steep floors are treated the same way as walls, aka they break the box. So miraculously, there is a way to throw the box from its starting position where it breaks after exactly 30 seconds. But the next question is, how do we get the coins from the box? Ideally, we should get all 3 of them, but it's not as simple as you might think. And that's because even if we throw the box and then immediately start punching forwards towards the pillar, we don't end up very close to it by the time the coins spawn. But maybe we could have the coins come to us. Well, the trajectory of the 3 coins is based on RNG, and the RNG value in the game can only have one of 65,000 possible values. That means there are only 65,000 possible coin trajectory patterns we can get, and we just need one pattern to work for this whole strat to be successful. So I ran a brute forcer to test every coin trajectory pattern. Now, we need all 3 coins to come towards us and for them to stick together. But let me tell you, the coins do not like traveling over this hill. It's too steep for them, so it's a miracle if even one coin has enough momentum to go over it. So getting all 3 to go over it just isn't an option from any RNG value. Instead, I found that it's much more likely to work if the coins go around the hill on the right. So check this out. We pick up the box, throw it, and then get hit by a Goomba immediately after to change our angle. Now we have to punch our way over as fast as we can because we're just barely gonna get there in time. Then the box breaks and all 3 coins come directly over here. It looks a bit unusual because the coins don't spread out randomly, but that's the power of brute forcing an exact RNG value. We can force this super rare coin pattern to happen. And so with that figured out, let me show you the final product. And since this is the real task, I'm now showing the HUD, the controller inputs, a B press counter, and a timer. So you have all the info you could ever want. Now like before, we punch our way up to the crazy box and ride it over. Then we get turned around by the fly guy. And you'll notice that I collect every coin out of the crazy box and fly guy because remember, we're going for 100 coins. And even though we have access to infinite coins, it'll still save time to get the coins that are found naturally in the course. And with that hit, I'm now facing the right direction. So goodbye fly guy, you've served your part in this historic feat. Then I punch this way and I'm faced with the pokey. It's not easy, but I do manage to kill him with only B presses. And I have his coin come directly towards us so I can collect it. Similarly, I kill one of the Goombas and get his coin. Like, we don't need all 3 Goombas for this, just 2 of them. In fact, having an extra Goomba around would just make things harder because it'd be one more enemy we'd have to avoid running into. Then I break this box and get the red coin inside. I get hit by a Goomba to redirect me towards the tornado, use the tornado to turn around, punch this way, use the pokey to slightly readjust my angle, then I kill him and get his coin. Now I punch past the Goombas and stop. Now there's a reason I'm standing right here, and it's because here are the Goombas' homes and their home ranges. The Goombas will only target Mario when he's within their home range, but here he's right outside of it. So the Goombas won't target Mario if they get close, but the Goombas can still walk into Mario if they happen to walk outside of their home range right at that spot. So it's the perfect conditions. The Goomba won't target Mario if he gets close, but he can still affect Mario eventually. And that gives us enough time to manipulate RNG to get the exact right collision to happen so that Mario faces the perfect angle. Cause let me tell you, the angles we need for this are precise down to the exact angle because the box throw is just that precise. But wait, how do we manipulate RNG if all we can do is press B? Like usually, we manipulate RNG by making dust, but that involves using the control stick, so we can't do that. But as luck would have it, we actually do have 2 ways of manipulating RNG using only the B button, and they have to do with the sand that's in the course. You see, if you press B 3 times in a row, Mario does a punch-punch kick. And the kick causes sand particles to appear, and each of those sand particles calls RNG to go in a random direction. So yeah, doing the punch-punch kick to spawn sand particles affects RNG, but it has a major flaw, which is that it causes us to move forwards. So if we kept doing it, we'd move too far away from the Goomba's home range and then the Goomba would never hit us. But lucky for us, there's a second way to affect RNG, and the whole strat basically depends on this. You see, if we wait a while, Mario will end up going to sleep. Specifically, he sits down and closes his eyes. And then if we wait even longer, he lies down. And the act of lying down on sand spawns sand particles which affect RNG. Then at a strategic moment, we can press B to wake Mario up and have him go back to sleep again, spawning even more sand particles. So we can just repeat this process to spawn sand particles on specific frames. That manipulates RNG without Mario moving anywhere, and so we can make the Goomba eventually walk into us. Then we get the other Goomba to knock into Mario, and this one's easier because we can just go into his home range and get him to notice us. And now we're facing the perfect direction for the box throw. Now after we throw the box, we also have to have the Goomba bump into us immediately. We have to avoid interacting with the Goombas as we make our way over to the coins, and we have to get the coins to spawn on the exact right RNG value. Now the RNG can take about 10 minutes to cycle around. So really, it's only every 10 minutes that we have an opportunity to get the RNG value we want. So yeah, a lot of this task is just waiting around for RNG to line up. Now here I'm about to get the 3 coins, which will recover me back to full health. And that's important because if I lost health each cycle, it wouldn't be repeatable because then we'd keep losing health until we died. But with the way I'm doing it, I get hit 3 times and then collect 3 coins, so it works out perfectly. Anyway, then I make my way over to the tornado to turn around, and that completes the first cycle. So now we just have to repeat all that until we have 100 coins, which is exactly what I did over the course of 3 months. And let me tell you, this was the least fun task I've ever worked on. on, literally. Basically, every step of the way had to be meticulously brute forced. I had to brute force the tornado to give Mario a good angle. Then I had to brute force the first Goomba knockback, the second Goomba knockback, and the third Goomba knockback. And that third one could take days, because getting that specific RNG value was so rare, in addition to everything else that needed to line up. Look at all the code I had to write. Look at it. Not only did it have to work, it also had to be pretty optimized so that it wouldn't take forever to find solutions. And it's not like I just pressed run on the brute forcer and left it on for 3 months. I had to carefully monitor and babysit this brute forcer the whole time, because every time it found a potential solution, I'd have to manually check it to make sure it actually worked, since lots of unforeseen things could go wrong. But if it did work, then I had to task the next little bit and tweak the brute forcer code to match the new conditions. And sometimes the brute forcer would reach a dead end, so I'd have to go back and re-brute force the previous step to try again. So yeah, for 3 months I was basically on call for this task 24/7. It drove me crazy, but it had to be done. I had to collect a star with one button, no matter how much time or effort it took. Whether it was weeks, months, or even years, I was committed to getting it done. Now, the brute forcer didn't take 100% of my attention, so I did work on some other videos while it was running, namely the Pyramid A Press video and the Womp's Fortress Tower video. So yeah, I have been going a little slow on videos this year, but not because I've been lazy, it's because making this one task took 3 months of my attention. I had to task the cycle 26 times in all, and even doing it just once was a monumental effort. But after 8 in-game hours, we finally reached the end of the cycles at 98 coins. But where did the last 2 coins come from? Well, let's just say we don't need those 2 Goombas anymore, they served their purpose. So I kill this Goomba and get his coin, and then for the other Goomba, I kill him too. And I actually end up doing it behind this pillar so you can't even see it. It's like it's censored because it's too heartbreaking to kill the guy who made the whole strat possible. Then I get his coin and spawn the 100 coin star. But wait, how do we get the star if all we can do is punch along the ground? Well, luckily, there's a slope over here. So we can punch onto the slope, slide down backwards, and then roll out into the star. So we did it. We got a star in the 1 button challenge in just over 9,000 B presses. And we can even use the B button to press save on the dialog box. So yeah, that's how the 100 coin star can be done using only 1 button. But we still have 2 more stars to go, so next let's look at the pyramid star. This time, we don't have to collect lots of coins, we just need to somehow make our way to the top of the pyramid. So how can we get over here? Normally, you're supposed to go all the way around the course, including navigating the stone path with the tox boxes. But if you think we can navigate all these turns in the 1 button challenge, then you haven't been paying attention. There's no way we could get past this part with just punching. But watch this. With just the right setup, we can use the tornado to get on top of this pillar. And from there, we may be able to bounce on the fly guy to twirl over to the pyramid. But even once we're on the pyramid, we still need to find a way to climb up it. Normally, you're supposed to go all around it to climb it. But we can't exactly turn with just the B button, so that idea doesn't seem very promising. But look what I figured out. We can have this fly guy shoot us with a flame, causing Mario to run while on fire. And when he's in that state, he can climb up steep slopes. So with all that figured out, here's what I did. Same beginning as before, we grab the crazy box, get the fly guy to redirect us, heal using the Pokey's coin, get the Goombas to redirect us, and then go to the tornado. Remember, we want to use this tornado to get onto the pillar, but that strat wouldn't work right off the bat because the tornado remembers certain variables between each iteration. Specifically, it remembers its moving angle and it remembers its size oscillation timer. So before we can use it to get onto the pillar, I first have to get the tornado into a good state. Once it's ready, I navigate away from it, use the Goombas to turn me around, navigate over to this tornado, twirl in it a couple times to face the right direction, and then head over to the pillar. From here, I'm able to get the tornado to drop me off on top of the pillar since I had put it into the exact right state for that to happen. Then I punch onto the side of the pillar, fall off because it's so steep, bounce on the fly guy, and twirl all the way over to the pyramid. Now I land facing towards the pyramid slope, so I punch up to it and actually use it to redirect my angle to be more parallel to the slope. Then I punch forwards until I get the fly guy's attention. He knocks into me, which gives me a better angle because now I'm facing directly towards the slope. Now I can go onto the slope and slide down to make dust, which helps manipulate RNG to control the fly guy. Eventually, when all the conditions are right, I get him to knock into me again, which makes me face right towards the star. Then he burns me, allowing me to run directly up the slope. Now I managed to make it into the star's little cubby, but I still can't quite reach the star. Luckily though, we're facing slightly towards it, so if we just keep repeatedly punching into the wall, Mario slowly moves along the wall until finally he collects the star. So it's pretty lucky how that works out. And here's an aerial view of the ending so that you can see exactly what's going on. So Mario goes into the cubby, the fly guy then tries to attack us again, but he ends up going away. Now eventually, Mario starts punching the wall. Now Mario doesn't actually get any closer to the star as he punches forwards or recoils backwards. During those, he just stays on the same line. It's only when he's in contact with the wall that he ends up moving slightly north and then is on a slightly closer line. And so if we just keep punching into the wall for 2 minutes straight, Mario eventually moves far enough north and touches the star's hitbox. So that's 2 stars done in the 1 button challenge. And just 1 more to go, which is the Klepto Star. For this one, we have to somehow touch Klepto to unlock the star and then collect the star. But that's easier said than done given that we can only punch along the ground. So let's talk about Klepto for a minute. He actually functions differently depending on which mission you select. It's only on mission 1 where he has the star. On all the other missions, he tries to steal your hat and there is no star. So in order to collect the Klepto Star, we have to select mission 1. That's a little bit of an issue though, because remember that tornado we used to get onto the pillar? Well, that tornado is only present on missions 4, 5, and 6. It's not there on missions 1, 2, or 3. So given that we're selecting mission 1 for the Klepto Star, that means we won't have access to that tornado. Luckily though, I figured out that we can have this fly guy shoot us with a flame to get us onto the pillar, so that should work. But there are 2 remaining questions. 1, how do we touch Klepto? And 2, how do we touch the star? First, let's focus on Klepto. It's gonna be pretty hard to touch him given that he flies so high up in the air. But you see, there are 3 spots that Klepto likes to circle around, and each spot is near a pillar which could give us some height to work with. First, Klepto circles this pillar near the Tox boxes, but since this pillar is surrounded by deadly quicksand, I don't see how we could get onto it. Second, Klepto circles this pillar near the pyramid entrance. Interestingly, this one has a crazy box nearby, and if we pick it up just right, we can hit Klepto. And then third, Klepto circles this pillar near the oasis. Now this one has a fire spitter next to it, so we can get burnt to get onto the pillar. But what do we do from there? Well, watch this. If we go onto the steep part of the pillar, Mario becomes airborne and falls off. So instead of just falling down, we can instead use B to do a dive and rollout that reaches Klepto. So that's 2 ways of reaching Klepto. But we still have to find a way to get the star because punching along the ground won't work. I tried getting burnt, going onto the pillar, and then running off the back of it, but that doesn't go far enough. I also tried punching onto the back of the pillar, then doing a dive, that also didn't go far enough. But watch this, if we grab the crazy box, then it actually can reach the star. So here's the plan, touch Klepto using this pillar so that we preserve the crazy box, then use the crazy box to get the star. So here's what I did. Same beginning as the other times. We grab the crazy box, get the fly guy to change our angle, heal using the Pokey's coin, get the Goombas to redirect us. Then I use this Pokey to redirect my angle, kill him, and get his coin to recover to full health. Now remember, there's no tornado this time, but we can actually just punch our way through the quicksand trap because it doesn't move Mario while he's punching. So I continue punching forwards and I get the fly guy to notice me. Now fortunately, Mario's actually immune from enemy attacks while in this quicksand because the action for being in quicksand is flagged as invincible. But he can still get hit while punching because that's a different action. So I get the fly guy to knock into me while I'm punching, which redirects me so that I'm facing towards the pillar. Then I punch forwards more until I'm in just the right spot, then I get burnt, run up the pillar, stall for a bit by punching in place, fall off, dive onto the fly guy, and twirl over to the pyramid. Now I land on the pyramid facing the perfect angle. The way I got this angle is because earlier in the run, before I even entered Shifting Sands Land, I fought Bowser, and I held Bowser at just the right angle. Now the variable for that doesn't get cleared between levels, and so it ends up influencing the angle that Mario lands lands the twirl at. And with this angle, I can punch forwards and go onto the slope right next to the fly guy and use him to twirl off of the pyramid. That ends up putting me over here where there's a tornado that exists on all missions. So I go into the tornado multiple times to give me a better position and angle. Now once I have a good setup, I punch this way, go into the water, and I actually manage to turn around using the various slopes in this area. And watch this part. I go onto a steep floor, fall off, roll out onto it to store vertical speed, pop up going backwards, and ultimately end up facing the exact direction I need. Then I punch forwards until I'm near the fire spitter. I get burnt by the fire, go up the pillar, and I try to roll out into Klepto, but it doesn't work. So what's going on? Well, remember earlier when I tested it? Because we were just testing, I got into position with a ground pound, and then I was able to dive in place and roll out into Klepto. In other words, I dove on the first frame possible, and that let me stay near the top of the pillar. But this time, since it's for real, I'm not ground pounding into position, I'm using the flame. But there's a slight difference in behavior this way because the earliest B press this time punches instead of diving. If we want to dive, we have to wait an extra frame until doing the B press, and that causes Mario to fall down the pillar too far, and so the rollout doesn't connect with Klepto. So yeah, it's a bit of a problem. Luckily though, I managed to find a workaround. Watch this. We can dive roll out into the pokey, get knocked back and bounce on him, and end up back on the pillar. And this time, because we're in knockback, we don't have the 1 frame delay in the dive, so now the rollout does hit Klepto. Then I heal using the blue coin and use the fire to climb up the pillar again to get past it. Specifically, I fall off the back of it and slide on the ground to give me a better angle. Then I punch over to the tornado, go in it multiple times to redirect me, grab the crazy box while aimed right towards the star, and it misses. So what's going on? It's not like I aimed wrong, it's that I'm overshooting the star, which is a big problem because we have no way to shorten the box's trajectory. But it worked earlier during testing, so why would it fail now? Well, I did some digging around and here's the reason. You see, there's an interesting thing about stars when they move into their final position. Due to a bug in the code, the star always moves 1 frame too far when it goes into its spot. So look, this red line shows where the star is trying to end up. So if we spawn the star from the left, it'll end up slightly more to the right. And if we spawn the star from the right, it'll end up slightly more to the left. Now earlier during my testing, I had thought that that little difference was negligible, and so I had just spawned the star from here. That makes the star spawn farther from the crazy box, allowing the crazy box to bounce right into the star. But if we spawn the star from this pillar, then the star ends up in a bad spot, and so we can't ride the crazy box into it, it overshoots. I also tested riding the crazy box onto this slope in the hopes that I could then slide down and roll out into the star, but it just doesn't quite reach. In fact, no matter what angle I tested, I couldn't find a way to make it work. Now when I realized that, I was devastated. Like, I know we already got 2 stars in the 1 button challenge, but I wanted this 3rd one. It was so close and I already sunk too much time into it. There had to be a way to make it work. And that's when it hit me, what if we could use 1 crazy box bounce to both hit Klepto and get the star? Because previously, we just focused on the 3 points that Klepto circles around. But Klepto also migrates between those 3 points. You see, Klepto will wait at the point that's closest to Mario, and he'll wait there until Mario gets close and stays close for some time. That causes Klepto to go to one of the other points and then come back. In this case, he goes to the right pillar and then comes back to the left pillar. And so if we grab the crazy box at just the right time during Klepto's migration, we can both hit Klepto and fall into the star. There is one complication though, because watch this. If I go next to the crazy box and then wait for Klepto to leave, he never does. You see, here's the range that counts as being close to Klepto. But you can see that Mario periodically exits the range, so we don't stay in it for a long enough sustained time. It's kinda weird though, because when Klepto first arrives at this point, his range encompasses the crazy box. See, the crazy box stays within the red circle 100% of the time, even when Klepto is farthest away. But after some time, his positioning kind of devolves and then no longer covers the crazy box. See, now the crazy box periodically exits the red circle. So basically, we need to get into position next to the crazy box, but do it shortly after Klepto arrives at this point. If we do that, the range encompasses the crazy box, Mario stays within the range for enough time, Klepto leaves, migrating to the exact point we need him to go to, and then we can pull off the maneuver with the crazy box to both hit Klepto and collect the star. So here's the plan. We can't approach the crazy box right away because Klepto's positioning has already devolved. So instead, we have to approach it from the other side. Then we'll be able to stay close to Klepto, having him frequently refresh his pathing so that he never devolves into the bad state. So let's go back to the task. This time, we still navigate to the oasis and turn around. Then I use this pokey to re-angle myself and navigate towards the pillar. It is a bit tricky to get past this spot because it's so tight, but after enough times, I finally managed to get through it. Then I punch forward, use the pokey to redirect me, punch forward again, and then get redirected again. Now I'm facing directly towards the crazy box. And this time, Klepto's pathing didn't devolve yet, so after some time, he does end up leaving and coming back. And then at the perfect moment, I grab the crazy box, bounce up, hit Klepto, and fall right into the star. So we did it. Even though all those things went wrong, somehow it still worked out in the end. This wasn't the sunk cost fallacy, this was the sunk cost triumph. And here's another view of the ending so that you can see exactly what happened. So I wait here until Klepto leaves, and then I use that moment to get into position. So Klepto's now migrating to the pillar on the right, and then he returns to the pillar on the left. And because he just got here, his position didn't devolve yet. So I can wait here next to the crazy box, and I remain inside the red circle at all times. The bound of the red circle does get pretty close, but I do stay inside. That causes Klepto's timer to keep increasing, which you can see above his head. And once the timer reaches the threshold at 573, it causes Klepto to migrate away to the other pillar. That sets things up perfectly for the final maneuver. So we grab the crazy box, bounce up into Klepto, and fall right into the star. So, despite all odds, we got the Klepto Star, which totals 3 stars in all. So yeah, that's the entirety of the one button challenge. We restricted ourselves to one button, so our controller might as well look like this, which was not much to work with. The challenge seemed impossible at first, as all we could do was punch slowly along the ground, not even turn. So we'd constantly get stuck, fall off the edge, or just have no conceivable way of progressing. But through sheer willpower and perseverance, we managed to get not 1, not 2, but 3 different stars. That's 3 stars each gotten using only one button. So it just goes to show, even though this game is 30 years old, we're still learning new things about it. Thanks for watching. And now for this video's member event. In case you don't know, at the end of all my regular videos, all the members of my channel participate in a member event. And this one will be taking place in Shifting Sands Land. Now for the past half hour, you guys watched me punch my way all around this level. So now it's your turn to do it. Specifically, you guys gotta go all the way around the course the intended way. First person to reach the pyramid star wins. And so without any further ado, let's begin. I like how the marbles start off so organized, but then in 1 second they devolve into a chaotic mess. For the first challenge, you guys gotta get past these enemies, 2 bombs and a fly guy. But it looks like even that's wiping out a ton of people. I mean, come on guys, the fly guy wasn't even moving. So far, we've lost Taffyco, Mr. Sir, and Lil Gamers. Now you guys gotta fit onto the stone path, which looks like it may be difficult given that you guys are in a giant blob that's way too wide. Next, we have the tox boxes. And I made it so easy for you guys. You just gotta get past 1 tile that's deadly. And even then, you might get lucky and end up in the hole. Now we've lost PJ Sands, Kid Leaf Stoop, Buprofen64, Lugmalord, Toshigun 1337, JR the Flying Fire, Eric Vilas, Chromosomneo, Nitro, Hot Joe, Biggs22, The Chuckster, Affex, Fanton, Cubic, Flater, Nathan Perkins, Sakagura Synth, and HK Jacket. Uh-oh, watch out for Klepto, he's probably still mad that we stole his star. And watch out for the Fire Spitter. Now we have the pillars, which you could just go around, or you could climb them. I mean, climbing them does take longer, and we are in the middle of a race, but you know what guys? You do you. Now watch out for the quicksand trap. The middle of it is deadly and will kill you, which is how we just lost Rage Man and the Bros. Next, you guys gotta squeeze onto this little pathway, so a lot of you are falling off on the sides. But we are finally on the pyramid. Watch out for the fire spitter. Oh, you guys got lucky with the cycle. But you guys are pushing each other off, like what just happened to Hopja. And now for the final obstacle, a fly guy shooting fire and decimating everyone, including Morph Star Changeling. But 3 of you guys did make it all the way to the star. So, congrats to our first place finisher, Paragon12321. And good job to Hands for getting second, and to Joshua from Wii Sports for getting third. And everyone else will be ranked by how long they lasted before dying. So yeah, that's what a member event is like. So if you want to get in on the next one and support me, consider becoming a member of my channel. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I mean, usually you guys see me trying to not press a certain button on the controller, but this time we did the reverse and somehow the results were still pretty interesting. I mean, this one button challenge has been pretty close to my heart for a while. I actually came up with it about 10 years ago. The idea was to take these button challenges and push them to their absolute extreme. Just one button. You can't get lower than that. It's like the ultimate challenge, and getting a star this way would show true mastery of the game. And so it was always my dream to do it. Now, when I came up with the idea 10 years ago, my plan was to get the 100 coin star in Snowman's Land using the money bags. You know, by duplicating them, like I mentioned earlier. But when that one sign got in the way, I basically gave up on the whole challenge. But then about 2 years ago, I decided to investigate the challenge again. But this time with all the new knowledge and tools that we've accumulated over the past 10 years. And in this video, I walked you through the exact process I did as I analyzed it. As you saw, pretty much every course could be eliminated right off the bat except for Shifting Sands Land. In there, I figured out how to get the 100 coin star, which took 3 months. Then I figured out the Pyramid Star, which took about a week. And then the Klepto Star, which took about another week. And that was just for making the tasks. Making the actual video covering them took another 2.5 months. So yeah, 6 months total dedicated to solving and showcasing this challenge. And I'm so glad it's done now, so that I'm free and can move on and fully focus on other topics. Like, this video has been weighing on my mind for years, almost like having to work with one hand tied behind my back this whole time. Cause remember, it was 2 years ago that I figured out that Shifting Sandland's 100 coin star was possible and knew I had to do it. And that was while I was working on the invisible wall video. So for the past 2 years, I've been trying to work this video into my schedule. Like, I knew it would take several months to do because of having to make the tasks. And I didn't want to just abandon you guys for months right after finishing the invisible wall video. So first I made the cabin door video, a pretty small one to give you guys something right off the bat. Then I made the Goomba glitches video. That one was supposed to be a nice simple one to hold you guys over while I worked on the one button challenge. But that Goomba video ended up taking way longer than I expected. Now after that video is when I committed to doing YouTube full time. And as my first official act as a full-time YouTuber, I said enough is enough. I'm doing this one button challenge video and getting it done. But of course, the brute forcing didn't take my full attention, so I was able to make the Pyramid A Press video and Whomp's Fortress Tower video in the meantime. I chose those 2 videos because they seemed like nice small self-contained topics. I wanted something relatively small so that it wouldn't take too much focus away as I simultaneously worked on the one button challenge. But let me tell you, my mind is not meant for multitasking like that and being on call for the brute forcer 24/7. That was a miserable existence. I just couldn't relax my mind. But like I said, it had to be done. Someone had to figure out if you could collect a star with one button. The world needed to know the answer, and so I took on that responsibility. I figured out the answer, and now it's documented for everyone to see. And I couldn't have done it without you guys. You guys made this possible. By watching my videos, subscribing, becoming members, donating, sharing my videos. Through all of your support, you've empowered me to fulfill my dream of being a full-time YouTuber, and in turn, let me pursue my wildest ideas. In this case, you allowed me to dedicate months into finally solving the one button challenge, proving that 3 different stars can be gotten with just one button: the Pyramid Star, the Klepto Star, and the 100 coin star. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for everything.